Hi guys, Coach JT here with a new face today. We got Coach Campbell and Coach Mitch here today, and we're going to have a great call here on our Wednesday night um, Q&A. Campbell, why can't I think of what we call this?
It's our Chalk Talk Wednesdays.
Talk Talk Wednesday. We only missed 1 week, but I tell you what, traveling to Europe and Brussels and Belgium and all over the freaking place has got me just so confused and so tired. I don't know if I'm supposed to be sleeping or awake. But anyway, let's get to talking about some baseball here, Campbell. So why don't you go ahead and introduce Coach Mitch?
Yes, so first of all, we will get to Coach JT and Coach Larry's trip next week because we had some very exciting stuff come from that. But we're waiting until Coach Larry is back so we can, have everybody together on the call and talk about all the exciting things. Um, and then tonight we have a very special guest. I'd like to welcome Mitchell Roberts, or Mitch as he goes by. He is one of the player coaches for the University of Denver club baseball team that I help out with and that you guys hear about all the time. So, Mitch, do you want to say hi and just tell everybody how long you've been coaching for and what year you are in school and just kind of introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, hey guys, I'm Mitch. I am from East Lansing, Michigan, and I probably consider myself coaching for about this is probably my first year. Last year was kind of my first year, kind of picking things up, trying to be a player coach, and I'm a junior this year at the University of Denver.
Awesome. So, can you tell everybody how you first got into baseball?
Um, well, probably started off t-ball at a young age, and it was a really good experience. It was my dad was my coach, and then like one of my dad's friends from his high school was our assistant coach, and it kind of stayed that way throughout middle school, and then high school came along. So I've been playing for a real long time.
Awesome. Okay, and why did you decide to take on the role of being both a player and a coach here at DU?
Someone's got to step up. There wasn't really no one around, and the first practice came along, and I was the secretary of the team, and our president was abroad, and our vice president was not really coming to practice, and I just stepped up and started running practices, and I kind of wanted to make the team run up to its abilities because I feel like in the past it was kind of below what they could have been.
Yeah, I feel like you've done a really great job with turning the team around this year, as our record shows so far. Um, how would you describe your journey with the team so far, and is this something that you could see yourself doing long term?
Yeah, so like I said, I never in the past would have thought this was a passion or kind of like a calling for me, but the more I spend time researching practice plans, watching, YouTube videos on what I can do at practice, it's like the more I really want to, you know, having it make this something I can do in my life. And, so I'm going to go back to school and get my PhD in a couple of years. And I really hope I can be a graduate assistant on the whatever school I end up going to. I can be a graduate assistant on their baseball team. And, hopefully that can find a way to get me some other coaching position later in my life.
Very cool. Um,
Do you mind if I
and then-
say something here for a second, Campbell?
oh yeah, go for it.
I mean, you're in it, going, pounding in with questions, but I'd like to talk about this last one a little bit and some of the phrases and things I heard. And I know that when we're talking to new coaches, a lot of what we do is the team follows the demeanor and belief of the coach. So if the coach believes that there's more potential, that's a good start. But when a coach knows that there's more potential and knows that there's a higher ceiling and knows that you haven't reached it, then he's going to go out and he's going to find ways to get there because that's how it works. Um, so it's a great start to see that potential. It's even better to know it's there and to be doing those things. And I already know you know it's there, Mitch, because you wouldn't be searching for YouTube videos and practice plans and reaching out to other resources and being on calls like this or in the community getting value from old calls if you didn't see that value there. Like if you try to sell me a car for $100,000, you have to translate the value. Like if I'm going to give you $100,000, you got to give me more than that in a car, right? You got to give me something that's going to get not just get me from point A to B, it's going to give me an experience. And so when you're a coach and you are trying to wrangle a bunch of club players, I'm sure you know this, Mitch, but it's all about saying, okay, my vision is this. Can I translate that vision into action? And when I do that, if I were to go to my team today and ask them to imitate me, do their best impression of me, do I see that vision? And if you do that and they can't imitate you, you're probably not going to get to that vision because it's not strong enough. You really want to be, instead of saying things like I hope and I wish and I dream, to I'm going to go to graduate school, I'm going to do this, and it's going to work out. And I just know that. And I know that we're going to be in the championship. I know we're going to play in Ogden. I know that we're going to do these things. I know this is going to be the best season because there's a different level of commitment when you say that. It's funny, and Campbell knows this is my favorite thing. And in fact, it's on my wall right here. It says, it's a saying from the master Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. Because the moment I say, I hope for this, it means there's quite a bit of doubt in there. There's like, I hope that works out. It's sort of like crossing your fingers and doing that. And what I would suggest is you get, that's what I want. And whatever it takes to get that, I'm just going to get it. And sometimes we may fall short, but I promise you, with that type of a mentality, not only will you as a coach perform better, but your team will perform better because they see and feel how much you believe in that vision you're trying to communicate to them.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
What do you think, Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. It's always what you told me, if you want something, you got to go out and do it. You can't like sit there and say, "Oh, I'm gonna try and catch this ball. I'm gonna try and hit this ball." You got to go out there and be like, "You know what? I believe it. I believe I can do it."
I think that was actually probably our team's fault last year, was that, the person who cared the most was me, but it didn't reflect that way throughout the team, I felt like.
Yeah, and sometimes you gotta, leaders are born out of necessity. They're born out of calling, like somebody calls you, or they fall into that role. And I kind of feel like just hearing how it went for you, that you were born out of necessity. You saw this, you had this vision, you believed in it, and you said, you know what? I'm just going to step into this role and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot more than you think to those players.
Yeah. Okay. So going off of
Moving
that,
on.
moving on.
I love it. All business, Campbell. All business.
We're on a time crunch tonight, so I'm going through. I know Mitch has some questions for us, so I'd love to get to those.
Perfect.
How do you switch mindsets between being a teammate and then being a leader or being the coach on the team?
I think that every person on the team I try to be good friends with. I think it's an important thing to have like friendship. And when I'm hanging out with someone, I'm one-on-one, they know that we're teammates. But when I'm all business, giving a pep talk before a game, like I gotta have the respect of a coach, and I kind of made that clear at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Say that question again.
How do you switch mindsets between like being a teammate versus like being a leader or a coach on the team. Because like sometimes you do have to go from that like, hey, we're teammates, we're buddy buddy to like, hey, you know what, you're not doing well, you're being pulled. And sometimes you can't always be, I mean, Coach JT, you know this better than anybody playing on the Wolfpack. Sometimes you have to switch from that role of like, hey, you know, we're buddy buddy, this is great, to like, hey, you know what, I'm I'm pulling you, you know.
Yeah, and it's good to actually be born of that. Like you were thrust into and sort of expanded into this role, Mitch. It you were a part of the team first, and that's not always the coach's dynamic. A lot of times, a new coach comes from outside the network and doesn't have that relationship, and then you come in, you have to earn that trust. But you sort of inherited that trust because you had been playing with them for a year, and that's a super great way to come into it because it would be a little easier for you to say, okay, here's Mitch the friend, and then when it's time to be all business, when you cross that line, when you come across into the dugout, now you're talking to Mitch the coach. And my daughters used to say to me, Dad, you're using your coach's voice, because I would be at times coaching them at home, and there was a very clear difference between when I'm using my coach's voice and when I'm being a dad. And it's very clear. And so when I would come home and bring the coach home, they would make sure and remind me, hey, we're your kids, not your players. And you can make that clear distinction. And it is very different. It's very different. And I think it would be easier for somebody like you, Mitch, coming up through the system where you were the player and had that relationship already established and that trust, and then you grew into that coach's role. And I think that's why a lot of reasons why you're seeing so much success this year.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that. Yeah. Is it tough for you to switch between those two voices, or is that something that you can just do real easily?
Well, it's very easy. It's very easy because it really just takes you noticing it. Because if I've been coaching for 4 hours at the facility or on the field or wherever, sometimes I do bring it home and I just continue in that. But the second you notice it, you can switch out of it. It's very easy. Just
Yeah, I think
paying attention, or somebody like Campbell pointing it out.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it is good that the guys know you from my perspective, just like sitting and watching everything. I think it's good that like, you know, the guys do see you as a teammate, but also they see you as someone they respect. And so I think they do know like when we go into a circle at the beginning of the game, the end of the game, circle at practice, they know that you're Mitch the coach. And I think you've done a really good job of like setting those boundaries and establishing yourself not only as one of their teammates, but also as a coach.
Thank you, Campbell.
Okay, and then how do you motivate players who might be struggling either mentally or performance wise?
I think that a big thing that's, like JT was saying, that it's kind of rare to see in coaches is that I'm also playing. And I think that one thing everyone on the team knows is that, like, when I'm playing, like, I believe that every single person in our field is going to make a play. From our best to our worst, when the ball's in the air, I know our right fielder is going to catch that, even if he drops it. And, I think it's just that I have so much trust in them that likewise, I feel like they have it back in me.
Yeah. Well, how would you approach a situation like,
Hmm.
let's say with Drew? Drew had kind of a tough weekend, one of our outfielders on the team. How would you approach him? Like, with him having a tough weekend where he made a bad call, he got thrown out on base, and then he couldn't make any plays out and left after that. What would you say to him, or how would you approach him and try to help him in that situation?
I always revert things back to, I always tell them that you just got to picture ourselves on Diane Went. That's where we practice. And it's like, I've seen all of our outfielders make a lot of plays. And it's like, I think that there's something that comes to like performative anxiety. Like these guys get nervous before games, and like the first 2, 3 innings can sometimes be kind of scrappy. So I'm just telling them, like, picture yourself back at Diane Went, and like, I know you can make those plays. Just rally and make the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can, do we have time for me to add to that, Campbell? Because we're
Yeah,
right
we did.
through these. So one of the things that I know for sure, that those are all great ways to handle that. By the way, you want to stay with that positive reinforcement. But the reason why a player is taking what happens on one side of the field out to the other side is they're totally focused on themselves. They don't give a shit about their team in that moment. There isn't anything outside of them. And so, as a coach, if you can find a way to get them to care about the person who's standing next to them in center, so you said Drew was in left field. What if you had a way to get Drew committed to say, you know what, I messed up on one side of the ball. I'm going to be here for my pitcher right now. I need to be here for my pitcher. And if I try to get him to focus on forgetting something, it's like saying, don't think of a pink elephant. What are you thinking about right now?
Pink elephant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to switch that. And if you have somebody who runs down to first and they get thrown out, or it's a bad call and they throw a fit and they go into the dugout and they're throwing a fit, it's because they're internally focused. And as a coach, the best thing you can do for that person is just say, hey, look, I understand it was a bad call, a bad situation. It didn't work out. Baseball's a game of failures. Don't worry about it. You're going to get it. The law of averages always works. You're going to get it, just like you said, Mitch. But then also say, you know what? Your pitcher's going to need you. So I need you to refocus, get back out in left field and make plays because they need you. And make it not about them, but about their teammates, about being a part of that, because you've done such a great job of establishing this relationship. And it seems like when I've seen it, the few practices I've been to, there's a very good relationship dynamic there. So he probably does care about you, Mitch, if you're the pitcher, or if Will's pitching, or if Heath is pitching. He probably does care about those people. But in that moment, he's 100% focused on himself. And if you could somehow find a way to switch that to where he focuses on those other people on the field, you'll be surprised at how quickly those situations de-escalate, and he will make the plays that he's used to making.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think well, Mitch has a really great anecdote. Do you want to share the anecdote you told everybody about the backpack before we played in South Dakota?
Oh yeah, I love it. Let's hear it.
Okay, yeah. So sorry, I've said so much this year. I had a hard time remembering. So I told him before the game that everyone has a backpack you carry around with your family, your girlfriend, anyone, homework. It's all in your head. But what you got to do is you got to leave the backpack in the dugout, and the only thing you're thinking about is you and the team on the field. So
I love that the Oklahoma City coach for their softball team. She and it's actually, is it Oklahoma or Oklahoma State? It might be Oklahoma State. She's what she has all of her players do is that she actually had a line painted on the backside of the dugout, and it goes all the way down the foul line. So she tells them exactly the same thing. You have all those things on your shoulders in your backpack, right? Take your backpack off physically and set it here, because once you come on the field, you got to take care of your family. This is your family. You got to take care of them. And all of those other things, you can't let it affect what happens on this field. And that's exactly what she does. I love that. Just leave that on the other side, and you can pick it back up. It'll be there when you get done. Nobody else wants it. They don't want your backpack. The second you're done, pick it back up.
mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, so that's all the questions I have for you, Mitch. Coach JT, are there any questions you'd like to ask?
Yes, Mitch.
Hmm.
When you're designing your practices, and I know you're a new coach, but when you're designing your practices, what is it that you're trying to do each time you go out to practice? And does that change based on games from the weekend or what's coming up? How do you prepare for that?
So we get 2 practices a week. I think that Monday is a good day. If say we had a game last Saturday, it's a good time to sharpen up on the things we messed up, whether it was base running, whether it was first and third throwdowns, or if it was just pop flies. That's when, I spend a couple extra 10, 15 minutes extra doing something that, we might not usually do at practice. And then the next practice, Wednesday, is kind of like our routine practice where like, our outfield does the same thing and our infield we break up, and it's almost set in stone that every Wednesday we do the same thing now, and I really like that we have that.
Good. I think those are just fine answers. Did you have anything to add on that, Campbell?
Um, I think so. Right now, we play on half of a turf field, or we practice on half of a turf field. And usually there's someone else on the field because the University of Denver rents it out. So it's usually like the program in Denver Volo, where they play flag football out in the field, and we can't hit. So the problem we run into is we never get time to hit. But I think if we ever did, so when the facility opens up and we are able to come in and hit, I think it'd be really beneficial if we spent like Mondays practicing out in the field and then Wednesdays hitting. I think it'd be super beneficial just to split up the days. I know that's something I always did when I played t-ball and when I played softball. Um, yeah, just think it would be really beneficial for us to focus on fielding one day and then hitting the next day.
Yeah, because
You
it
get
does really. Oh, go ahead, JT.
no. Go ahead, Mitch.
It kills our offense. Like you can tell when we're playing games that we are lucky to score 6 runs a game. I'd say six is our number, and then it's called baseball. So if you can throw a lot of strikes, you're probably one of our best pitchers, and we're not. And then the other teams, they see us throwing a lot of strikes, and they can hit just better than us. And it's something that we have all winter to work on. So I'm excited that this winter's in front of us because I think it's going to be a really strong time to develop. And by the springtime, I think we're going to be stellar on offense.
Good. I like it.
Not, I think, I know. I
I
know.
know. I know.
Yeah.
I love it. He's learning already.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say, I mean, even from what we've seen so far, we have some guys on the team who are just, you can tell they have so much potential, and I can't wait to see what they can do when they're in a batting cage and hitting consistently, and even working with you, Coach JT, and with Coach Larry on their hitting. And I'm so excited. I also have some videos and some workouts and stuff that coaches Larry and JT put together that I'm going to send out to the guys for them to work on over winter break while we're at home. So I'm super excited for that when everybody comes back and to see, how their hitting has improved just from those couple of exercises that Larry and JT gave to everybody.
Yeah, and a great tool. You can always have them, and I think I gave you the link. Just have them sign up on our AI site, and it will assess them every week and tell them if they're progressing in their swing or if it's getting worse. And they can access that from anywhere. So I know everybody from DU goes home, and a lot of you are from back east. Mitch, you said you were from Michigan. So I'm assuming you go back there. And when you do that, you can just access your training and your feedback and track your progress over that time so it's not lost. That's one of the things, like as a coach, my after our last tournament, I run an 18U girls softball team right now, and our last tournament ended a couple weeks ago. And they said, "When do you want to have practice?" And I said, "Me, 7 days a week, 4 hours a day, absolutely." And they're like, "What? We can't do that." And I said, "I know we can't do that, but that's you asked me what I wanted, right?" And the reason why is because if I do that, I can make a very specific practice. How practices and teams get better are when you take it from general to specific. So if we have 7 days a week to practice, we could say, today we're working on this, today we're working on this, today we're working on this, today we're working on this as we go through. If you do it, if you don't have 7 days and you now have 5 days, then you say, okay, well, we're going to work a little on this today and a little on this. So now you have 2 focus points. So it's a slightly less productive practice. Then you go to Tuesday and it's the same thing. We're going to work on this and this. And then you go to Wednesday and then you say, okay, well, I don't have 5, I have 2. And now as your coach, you're like, how do I get better at everything in 2 days? And every coach in Little League Youth Baseball does this. So I'm not bashing you, Mitch. Every single one of them does it. They try to do everything on Monday and everything on Wednesday. And they don't get better at anything, and they wonder why. And so what you've got to do is find a way to organize the practice where you have groups that are working on specific things, and that specific focus needs to be the focus of that practice. And so if you're working on your feet, every drill needs to be about your feet. If you're working on hand-eye coordination or fielding a ball, proper fielding techniques, or throwing, it needs to be on whatever that is. And you can, instead of saying, I have Monday practice and Wednesday practice, you can actually say, I have Monday practice, but I have the first part of practice, which is the first 20 minutes, or the second part, which is this. And what I would say, and what I always do is I say, look, when we stretch together. Everybody does the same thing because there's a mind meld. You're building a mastermind, right? You start to play better. But if you need to do something differently, don't do it during our stretches. Show up 15 minutes early to practice and do your different stretches that you need because you're a prima donna, which every team has. Every team has. Then when the team stretches, you all stretch together, you all throw together. When you do that, you now have this mind that's working together. And then you'll notice one time when I went out there and I was talking to you guys and you wanted to do infield, outfield. So I hit probably 150 phone goals, maybe more than that, to ground balls and fly balls, 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 right? And the reason I do that is because if you just go at it, you can get stuff done. If you talk about it, you take that time away from your practice. If you discuss it at practice, you're taking that time away from practice. If you don't have a specific plan that maximizes your practice before you step on the field, you're losing that time in practice. So if you only got 2 days, make a Monday practice actually 4 practices in one. Each practice has a specific focus. Wednesday would be the same way, and maybe we only do 3. And Campbell, I've heard you say over and over again, we can't hit. You can hit, you just have to modify it, right? So if I go out there and I play wiffle ball with a wiffle bat and a little tiny ball, I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm not going to bother those football players for sure. But am I going to be able to hit better and make better contact on a real ball? Hell yeah, right? So there's a ways around everything. I mean, you go down to now, if you guys have ever been to the Dominican, and I haven't, but I was with Ubaldo Jimenez for a week, and I was talking to him, and he said when he was growing up, they didn't have anything out there. It was just like you picked up a stick and a rock and you hit it, and that was you were playing ball. you know? And now they have these massive complexes. Every major league team has a massive complex in the Dominican Republic developing these kids. And so you have access to that. But before that, they found a way, right? They found a way. And you as a coach, just break it down and figure out. So if I do this drill, it takes this amount of time. And if I do this drill, so if I actually bundle these drills together, they're similar. So even though they're different focus points, I'm really going to get this better. If this is one of the things on Wednesday that I need to work out, da, 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 I can really get this better. And you can establish routines. You know, the bottom line is in order to win a baseball game, you got to hit the ball, throw the ball, field the ball, catch the ball. That's it. 4 things, right? And if you break down every practice into 4 different skill development things, and the only thing I would add to this, which I don't see very much, and especially in the youth coaches that I'm working with, base running and speed drills. Okay? Speed kills. I don't care what level you're playing at. If you got speed, you'll put pressure on the defense and you'll make more plays on your defense. So if you can teach speed, which a lot of people say you can't, but you absolutely can train speed. You absolutely can. Find a way to do that. And then base running. Because how many times, and you even brought it up here, Mitch, base running kills momentum if it's done in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're randomly stealing and not calculated stealing, it's totally different. It's like with my catchers when I'm talking about why do you backpick somebody at second base or at third base or at first base? Why do you backpick them? And they'll say, oh, to keep them on the bag. No. If I'm going to waste the throw, I want that guy out. So everything is about figuring out how to get that guy out. So when I'm practicing, I'm working on my speed, my arm strength, my foot speed, my technique. How do I hide it? How well do I hide the fact that this ball's coming, right? And it drives me crazy, especially I see it a ton in softball when I'm teaching these young girls where they stand up and they walk the runner back every time. I'm like, you're never going to get anybody out like that. They know you're going to be looking at them now. You got to do the thing where you're looking at them in your peripheral, but you're just throwing immediately back to the pitcher to make them think. And then on the third one, you fire down. And the third baseman knows you're going to do that. So she's prepared for that, right? Or he's prepared for that. Mm-hmm. You know, do everything with intention and focus. And the same with your practices, Mitch. If you do that, my intention today is to get one less error, right? To have one less error. My intention today is make better contact with the ball. You can design an entire practice around that. In those practices will start to make exponential increases on the field in game day. And the other thing I would say is make practice harder than the game. If you make practice harder than the game becomes a game. It's fun. It's easy. It's a relief to the players. If you go in there and every drill you do is shorthand, it's slow, you're taking time in between things, you're making the practice slower than the game. Then come game time, you're not fast enough. You can't react because you didn't train that way. And I think I'm kind of getting off of a tangent here, Campbell, but the last thing I'll say real quick is one thing that drives me crazy that I see all the time is in warm-ups, in pregame, the coach will be hitting the ball to the players and they will be lobbing it to the bases. And then they wonder why the first time a hard ground ball gets hit in the hole to the shortstop, she fields it amazingly, does a great job, plants her feet and throws, and the ball sails 4 feet over the first baseman's head. Can you tell me, Campbell, why did that happen?
Because that's where she wasn't practicing throwing it quickly to the first baseman. She was just practicing lobbing it.
Yeah, so now she has velocity on it and the same angle.
Yeah.
So, of course, it went over the first baseman's head.
Now it's going in the dugout.
You know, I see a similar thing it's in a couple of our starting outfielders when it's practice and the guys below them in the roster are trying to work their way up and they're trying their hardest. For some reason, our starters are looping the ball in, not sprinting after a ball they could catch, but they know that they're going to miss that ball and they're still going to be our starter. And that's one thing that really frustrates me. How would you go about kind of tackling that?
Yeah, that's an interesting challenge because you still want to win the game, right? And they know that. And if they're a certain level of talent above the next guy below them, it can be easy for that. But what you have to do is have some sort of reward system that's based on effort. So, right, let's say that maybe Zach is not your best catcher, but if he does certain things in practice, you give him a certain amount of playing time, right? And you're taking that time specifically away from whoever's lollygagging in practice, right? So if you see Franklin's a very good outfielder, he's a very good player. He at times seems to not be that interested in working hard. And first off, as a coach, if I see him out there doing that, he's going to be one getting that ball that's just out of his reach in front of him or way over his head that he has to run after because I intentionally am doing that, right? And second of all, if the guy behind him is working harder, I'm going to start giving some of his innings to that guy. And one thing you'll notice is the guy who's taking the innings from Franklin, or whoever, doesn't have to be Franklin, is probably going to start playing just as good or better. And it's because you believe in him. And that is so important, so important, so important. And the only way to do it, and there might be a time when you put that person in and they make a mistake and possibly lose a game for you. But if you want the team as a whole to get better and to work harder and to be completely bought in on your vision, you've got to do those things. Like if I say, if you do this and this and this in practice, you get playing time, then I need to give you playing time if you did those things.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen that with like Elon and Woody just so far this fall. Like Woody compared to last year is doing absolutely amazing. And then even Elon getting them out in right field, they've been making plays, they've been catching the balls. They both have great arms. And I feel like if we just keep working with them, they could probably make a decent center fielder.
You know,
Yeah,
I
I agree.
will tell you this right now. Larry and I were both super impressed with Woody. I mean, he is very raw. He's had no formal instruction clearly. But if you can get him in a throwing progression, I mean, he makes no effort, throws the ball 300 feet.
Yeah.
He obviously has a cannon if somebody would teach him how to throw. You just spend a little time on those things. And then when I was out there hitting the ball and he was in the outfield, he looked raw at first. But after we went through a half an hour of fungos, he was looking very comfortable and confident, which tells me he has the skill and the ability to do it. It's here, you know, just keep build up this confidence. And when we were analyzing swings, he had the fastest hands of anybody on the team, bar none. And I don't know if that has to do with cricket or whatever, but the man has incredibly fast hands. What happens is he thinks when he goes up to bat, he thinks. And hitting is not a thinking sport. It's not a thinking skill. If you think, you're late. You have to just allow the training that you did in practice or over the week or whatever to work when you're in there. You recognize the pitch. I mean, if I'm standing in the box, I'm yes, yes, yes. Okay, that's a ball. No. But first it's yes, yes. So I load, I start, I'm moving towards the ball, and then I decide, no, I got to stop. I don't want to swing it back. And that way I can't be beat by a fastball. And if it's a curveball, I go, yes, yes. And the curveball's a little slower. So I take weight off my front foot, which keeps me back just long enough to hammer that curveball, right? But
Mm-hmm.
those are things that you learn and you teach over the week. And in the game, you just got to get that boy out of his head and he'll be fine. He still thinks that you have to think through all of this, but he's done it enough now. You don't. Just go do it. Stop thinking. we can talk about it, and I'll tell you as a coach, Mitch, you'll tell him what he's doing wrong, and help him always use the sandwich method. Hey, you're doing these things right. Let's add this in here to help correct this, and you're also doing these. When you put those together, this is going to be you're going to have a great time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if you can get him or any other player out of their head like that, I mean, man, that kid's going to be good if you can do that. What year is he, by the way?
He's a sophomore.
Yeah.
Oh, good, good. He's gonna be an absolute stud for you. I promise you that. I mean, even if he didn't have any more coaching after this year with the two of you, he's still gonna be a stud.
So real quick, we only have about 10 minutes left because tonight JT's daughter, my youngest sister, has a dance competition that he has to run to. So are there any final questions you'd like to ask JT?
Yeah, I got a few. I was wondering, what do you think the correct time is to pull pitchers when they're kind of like a stubborn guy?
That sounds like you're giving them an option.
Like, I had this experience. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm sitting on the side of the bench and I'm getting up and I take my coaching helmet off and put on my hat and I'm on the side of the bench and someone on our team goes like this and tells me to go away. And it was someone with a lot of authority on our team telling me to do that when I thought it was the correct. We had a guy in the bullpen all warmed up, and then they eventually ended up scoring, 2-3 runs in a tight inning where I thought this other guy would have been more beneficial.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's all about handling it, and it's knowing the personality of that person. And one thing that I would say is you can tell as a coach, has the breaking ball stopped breaking? Is he missing his spots? It's not necessarily are they hitting him, but is it how they're hitting him? Has that changed? Because at first they might be getting ground balls and end up as hits. But then all of a sudden there's a line drive, line drive, line drive, line drive. Okay, now we got a problem, right? They've either figured him out or his stuff's not moving anymore. And that's when you got to take him out. And you have to take him out. That's why you were going out there. You
Yeah.
you know the answer to this question. So you just say, hey, it's not about you right now. It's about the team. I'm seeing some things going on. I think we got a better chance with the next guy going on, but you've done great to get us to this point, and thank you for getting us to this point. Is that guy going to be happy? No, he's never going to be happy when you take him out, no matter how obvious it is that it's time to take him out. So you can't win that one, but if you take him out, you could win the game.
Yeah. I got another one for you. So what is something coaching wise that you wish you knew before you became a coach?
Everything. Oh my God. Everything. The biggest thing is young coaches try to overcoach. They try to talk you through the process. And I like to say it's like walking or riding a bike. Riding a bike might be a better example because you probably remember that. When you first got on, you're wobbling back and forth and all this stuff. And your dad or your mom or whoever's helping you is kind of guiding you, right? But you're figuring it out. You're staying up. Tell me, when you went from wobbling like this to riding smooth and steady and then even riding without hands, what'd you do?
Just kept pedaling, right? Like nothing changed. It was the same exact thing.
Yeah. And what you really mean is I have no clue. I have
Yeah.
no idea how I went from being wobbly to going straight, but you figured it out, right? So as a coach, the biggest thing is give the guidance, give the instruction, and even better is to show them a drill that fixes the problem automatically. You don't even have to tell them what the problem is. But if you see it and you just say, "Hey, do this drill," knowing that that drill is going to fix it. If you don't talk to them and tell them what's happening, they actually experience it faster. And it's exactly like riding a bike. You have no idea how you went from wobbling to going straight, but you did because that's what you wanted. and you just keep pedaling. And it's exactly the same with hitting or throwing or running or whatever it is, right? And with base running, you don't have to be the fastest runner. You just gotta run at the right time, steal on the pitcher. You know,
Mm-hmm.
who's the fastest runner on the Wolfpack, Campbell? It ain't me, but I always have the most steals.
I think this last season, I think you had the most steals out of all the guys in the league.
Yeah,
Dang.
and it's not about how fast you are; it's about how smart you are. It's
Yeah,
about
believe
what you
me,
know.
he's pretty slow, but no one can ever figure him out. The pitchers can't figure him out. The catchers can't figure him out. Yeah, it's so funny watching you run bases and because you just do it so well and everybody is baffled.
Yeah, especially those 18-year-olds when we do that tournament in July, they're just like, how the hell is this guy stealing bases on me?
Yeah, some of these guys are playing college ball and they're just home for the summer, so they're playing on these 18 and over teams and they're like, "Okay, so this almost 50-year-old is stealing more bases than we are. What's going on?"
Something is wrong with this. Yes. Well, hopefully that answers your question, Mitch. You
Yeah,
said
it
you got
did.
a couple. You got another one?
Yeah, we can make this last one. What do you think separates a good team from like a championship winning team?
So a good team can be comprised of talent. So you got a lot of talent. A championship team is a family. And a family gets formed off the field. And I think I've had this conversation with Campbell before. But team events, team building, somewhere where you take your coach's hat off and you're just a person who cares about those players and they are realizing that their teammates are exactly like them. It's even better if you do it at somebody's house. Like, so for instance, with the girls, the 18U, they're going to organize a party for a sort of a preseason party going into this winter training season. And they're going to do it at somebody's house. And the reason why I say that, if there's somebody who's super quiet, or it's going to be a little different than you, Mitch, which is why I'm fumbling around here. But for instance, with these girls, obviously they're all about the same age. They live at home still, and what I recommend is that you go to whoever's house is the shyest or the quietest or the most recluse, because you're getting them in an environment where they're comfortable at their house with their teammates who can see, oh, this is just not an awkward girl. Actually, she likes the same things I do. She plays the same games I do. She does TikToks like I do because you're there, right? And it's a little different for a college age team like you. You're probably doing some other things at a team, but don't always do it at the coach's house. If there's somebody like Woody or somebody else who's really shy on the team, it's hugely valuable to do it at their house and put them in charge of organizing it and bringing everybody over and all of those things. You can help them. But if you do that, what happens is those outliers, those people that are, and maybe Franklin or one of your studs is a great example of that. If you can get them to buy into the team outside of practice and off the field, now you have a championship team.
Thank you.
And that's the difference. You can have
Yeah.
a good team with a bunch of skill, and they don't even have to be together very long. But to have a championship team, they have to be a family. Period.
I think it'd even be beneficial if you could talk ENS into hosting us.
That I see. I couldn't come up with anyone on the spot there, but that yeah.
Yeah, it'll make a world of difference. And all these new coaches, when I'm teaching them, they're like, that doesn't make any damn sense, JT. How is that going to make my team better? You know, and I'm not even sure I 100% know. And I spent 250 grand on this brain to figure out that answer. How do you make a championship team? And one of the things that is common in every championship team is they are a family. They look at the guy to their left and they would die rather than make a mistake that's going to hurt that guy. And they look to the guy on the right and you say, you know what? I don't care that much about this game, but I know he does. So I'm going to do it for him. And when you start to have that mentality doesn't come from practice. That doesn't come on the field. That comes from realizing that your teammates are people too, just like you, and being in an environment totally separate from baseball. And you can have little competitions and all of that stuff, and beer pong or cornhole or whatever it is. Those are great because now you're bonding even more and you're still communicating. But yeah, it's that off-field stuff that you do that makes all the difference in the world. And not enough coaches do that. I'll tell you right now, they think that doesn't matter, and that's the only thing that matters. If you didn't do anything else, you'd be better. You just would. I promise you.
Well, thank you so much to everybody watching this. I'm sorry, but we have to end our interview here because, like I said, Coach JT has to go. But
Ponderosa dance right here. I'm ready. I'm ready. Support my girl.
Thank you so much, Mitch, for coming on here, for having questions, answering all of our questions. As always, if anybody has any questions, please send them in to me or send them in on the forum, and we'll make sure we answer those next Wednesday on ChalkTalk Wednesdays. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. We missed you last week.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry we're out of town and it was just the time difference was too much for us to handle. We're just coaches, we're not that smart, we're just coaches. And we couldn't figure that out. And I apologize, Campbell, and I apologize to you guys, but a couple of ways you can see us, packcoaching.com. We've officially launched the AI website. Right now you can go on there and get a free trial. Also, trainwithpack.com is live. We still got to do some tweaking to that, but you can see a lot of things there. We're going to have a lot of our drills and tips and training, and we're doing a whole mental series that is going to be super valuable. You can access those there. And then there's always this group, this community here in school called Train with Pack. And this community is for coaches who are really looking to get into that and excel and create championship teams like Mitch talked about today. So thank you so much for being with us here on Chalk Talk Wednesdays, our Q&A session. And I remember that time. I see how proud you are of me, Campbell. And thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch.